What is better than a single system in a single case? Two systems in a single case? That's right. So today we're finally building my dual system inside the Evolv X. I'm not gonna lie, but I will miss the super compact and elegant nature of what I've been using so far, the Streacom .2. Make sure to check out that video right over here. But in my space, it fits perfectly well. And I think it's time to upgrade the case to a mid-tower just for fun. All right, so here's the situation. Currently, my 9900K system with the RTX 2080 Ti are inside the Silent Base 601. And my intent here is to keep all the same hardware and cooling, even the fans, and just transfer them over into the Evolv X. And then I want to take all my ITX hardware with 8600K in the Titan XP, this is what I've been using to render videos, and put it as a second system inside the Evolv X because this has a ITX slot above your main ATX motherboard area. It's gonna go above there, and I'm hoping I will not encounter any compatibility issues with the coolers because I intend to keep that giant Noctua cooler. So I do have a few concerns about this whole dual system configuration. One are the temperatures. I'm gonna have a lot of hardware in there that's running hot. The GPUs is the Titan XP and the RTX 2080 Ti. Based on my review, the GPU temperatures were really hot, so I'm just curious if I'll just have to keep the side panel open. And number two is actually using the dual system configuration for my workflow. Now the thing is, I've never done a dual system configuration in the past, and I'm having a hard time figuring out on how to utilize it. So if you have any suggestions on what I could do with the second system, please let me know, or any helpful feedback that I could potentially take for the next part of this project. That would be appreciated. And of course, the thing I'm most excited about is actually utilizing this really powerful hardware for video production. You know, I've been on this 6-core, 6-thread part and a really powerful GPU, but we're moving to the 9900K and the RTX 2080 Ti for video production. I'm hoping that will be a nice little upgrade. Now, the reason why I've been delaying this project for a while now is because I've been waiting for this, the Revolt X power supply from Phanteks. This thing can power two systems, so you don't need a power splitter, you don't need any additional accessories. Everything is sort of built in here because it has dual 24-pin, dual 8-pin. It's also 80+ platinum efficiency, which is awesome, and it's 1200 watts, so plenty of juice there for the 9900K, the 8600K, and those dual GPUs, and I think I'll have 6 SSDs. It is always nerve-wracking doing a complete rebuild of my main production machine, because usually, you know, I have that as like stationary thing that's always running, and I'm working with other hardware. And what I've been told so far is that at least one of the systems has to use an all-in-one cooler or some form of water cooling or a really low profile air cooler. But here I'm sticking with 8600K, so need something you know, that has nice cooling capacity for that chip. Let's begin. And power outage. Good thing I have these. I go through the disassembly procedure on every single case video that we do, and you know, with the Silent Base 601, that was a pretty simple operation with this big ATX enclosure. However, with this unique .2 where everything is attached via clips and I have to disassemble it, that is what I'm not looking forward to. Hey, the power's back. Let's resume the assembly. So my first order of business is try to figure out how cable management would work for both systems, and more importantly, figure out the compatibility for the height of the CPU cooler or the pump for the ITX motherboard. All right, 1, 2, and 3. No luck. Now, obviously I expected hiccups, but given my current situation, I might have to rethink some things. And so as I expected, this pump is just a little bit too tall to pass the clearance for, you know, this massive Noctua cooler. Of course, if I had an all-in-one cooler for this ATX motherboard, I would have no issues with the top room, but I'll substitute it for the low profile Be Quiet Silent Loop 360. It is a 360 rad that I was planning to put in the front anyway, so this kind of works out well. Okay, so the ITX mount is installed onto the top fan bracket, and you have to insert it from the bottom, not from the top, which is unfortunate. This would be much easier installation if you could just insert the ITX motherboard from the top, but that's not possible. The power button for the I/O is right over here, and the I/O is slightly pushed back, so there's a little bit of spacing in between the frame and the I/O. Not really a big issue, and as you can see, there's a little bit of clearance between the motherboard backplate and the frame, which means that if you have any NVMe SSDs or like M.2 mounts behind the motherboard tray, this is fine. However, as you can see, the fan bracket doesn't really allow access for the cooler, so like I have to remove the motherboard in order to install any cooling. The clearance here is very tight, so I'm thinking I have to put this in, route all the cables, and install the cooler, and then mount my ATX motherboard, because otherwise it will be a pretty big challenge. And so this is where I am right now. There were no issues mounting the pump, but the tubing, it's not exactly low profile, so I cannot rotate the pump for the tubes to exit on that side because it just interferes with the CPU tower. So I had to remove the middle fan on the cooler in order to have the tubes kind of like pass through here a little bit, bend over, and then just kind of maneuver the back. So this way it gives me enough length for the tubes so I can mount the radiator to the front of the frame. But of course, another option is to go with a different all-in-one cooler. So this Corsair H150i that has a low profile pump and tubes that also exit from the side, therefore not interfering with my CPU tower heatsink. But then I'm thinking if I have a 360 rad at the front, it will warm up and block a lot of the airflow that's coming for the main ATX system, which is what I'm more concerned about. And also I don't want to lose the middle fan on the main Noctua cooler. So instead of going the 360 route, I'm deciding to go the other route of still having 3 fans in the front, but for the ITX system going with a really low profile CPU tower. So this entire dual system configuration will be air cooled, and I'm hoping that's not a big compromise for the 8600K. It'll still have a nice powerful GPU, but I might have to downclock the 4.8 overclock to something a little bit more compatible with this little guy. Now I know this looks a bit unconventional. I'm not worried about this configuration. Temperatures on this card are fine. This cooler is pretty capable. I am worried about temperatures on the 8600K, but the compromise there is the ease of assembly and cable management. So when I populate this in, I can route this no problem, and then when I put this back in, it's not going to interfere with anything that's above it, which is a positive. But of course, I think I'll get hotter temperatures on this little guy. So let's populate the rest of the fans and the rest of the hardware, and hopefully our temperatures are not complete crap. So this Revolt X power supply is pretty interesting because for one, for a 1200 watt unit, it's pretty compact, lovely aluminum base over here. And for your connections, we have a pretty interesting row over here for system 1 and system 2. Wow. I mean, it's pretty good for just closing these rear panels. I could make it better, but I am more interested to see if this thing actually boots. Okay. Well, look what we have here. It basically booted on the first try. I had to just readjust one of the 24-pin connectors on the power supply because the second system was not booting. But after a little troubleshooting, right now, Battlefield 5 on my main 9900K RTX 2080 Ti system, and just changing the input here, we're gonna go back to the ITX system, and we've got YouTube, full audio, everything's working fine. Not bad at all. The next thing to do would be color coordination, so it's not an ugly piece of there's so much horsepower in it, and I want to showcase that a little bit. And I know it's a bit difficult doing any color coordination with the brown fans, but going with orange is always an option. However, my Jedi Order Titan XP is not RGB, so that's green, so I'm gonna try and explore my options over here. But yeah, should be fun. All right, good people, so having worked in the Evolv X for the second time now and configuring my dual system build, I can say that, if you're going that route, be prepared to pay the extra for those accessories like the ITX motherboard mount, the riser cable that's necessary if you're mounting a GPU for that ITX system above it, and also the power supply, because this one has no dual power supply mount, so you have to go with the Revolt X or some other power supply and buying the power supply splitter from Phanteks. So that whole approach definitely requires many add-ons. On top of that, pun intended, the entire clearance above the ATX motherboard is, I think, a little bit too tight. Right now it's cool because you cannot tell there's a second system installed, but with it comes a really difficult assembly process, because for me to access that ITX motherboard now would mean I have to remove that entire ATX portion, because the installation of the motherboard is from the bottom and not from the top. Of course, the heat will get trapped in that corner, so definitely again targeted for water cooling, carrying the heat away via tubes to your radiators. And in terms of my temperatures, I haven't done full extensive testing. The ATX system is perfectly fine, the GPU is fine as well, but I haven't closed the side panels yet, and I'm afraid that the top system with that tiny cooler for the 8600K will get toasty, because at idle it is running around 50 degrees Celsius. And so that is an issue, and I'll definitely have to lower my overclock. Now, a very interesting visual observation you can see because of the upside down motherboard is the RAM. Here I have installed Team Group's Nighthawk memory in white, which looks pretty cool, beautiful RGB illumination, but it also gives you the opportunity to match the memory on the ATX motherboard side of things for that really cool cohesive look. Just something to keep in mind. And my last comment would be about the cable management and how easy it was to route everything. You know, with the additional 24-pin and the 8-pin connections, they don't really add too much bulk to the rear of the chassis, plus add in those plates that close everything fine. I did not even have to use a zip tie, which is great. And now I'm gonna spend some time actually using this dual system configuration to get into the mindset of the potential buyer of what they might use this for. You know, dual systems, I don't even know what I'm gonna do with it now that I have this really powerful ATX system, but we shall see. Should be fun. Improve your workflow with Stream Deck Mini by Elgato, giving you 6 fully customizable LCD keys for macro commands, hotkeys, app launches, media control, and a full array of customization for OBS, Twitch, XSplit, and more. Check out the Stream Deck Mini down below. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to stick around for part 2, where we discuss temperatures, my full experience down the line, and yeah, check out this other relevant content, subscribe to our new boot sequence channel, and we'll see you in the next video. This is the part where I say, as always, stay dual, my friends.